Hey everybody, it's Justin with Sillage Scents. I have got 12 addictive men's fragrances for you. These are fragrances I come back to over and over again because they are amazing. Most of them, the fragrance community is in agreement on that very thing. So we're going to get into this, but please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I've got videos coming out every couple days and I'd love to have you join us. Also, let me know down in the comments, what would you add? What are fragrances that are just addictive? You keep going back to them. You wake up and think, man, I'd really like to wear that one again, even though I've been wearing it a lot lately. Let me know in the comments and we can go back and forth a little bit on that. Okay, we're going to start with a blue fragrance. Some blue fragrances can be boring, not all that interesting. This is one I think is very interesting. One of my favorite blue fragrances, even though it's pretty inexpensive. I'm talking about Coach for Men. This one you're going to get some pear, some pepper, some ambroxan. It's not something that is completely different from the other blue fragrances, but to me it stands out because of the mix of freshness and sweetness. There's that airy ambroxan really does something magical with that pepper and that sweet pear, as well as other notes, some citrus and things like that. I do want to run through these pretty quickly, but I will say about this one that I have gifted this to 3 or 4 people at this point, and a couple times I've complimented those people when they've been wearing this. I've just said, man, what are you wearing? That smells amazing. And they've said, that's the one that you gave me. So this is an absolute gem. You can get 100 ml, I think usually for around $40, and it is a steal. Next up, we're going to go with one that is a spicy fragrance, one that I would say is more suited for fall and winter, although the last one definitely shines in the heat and all year. This one I'm talking about, Mercedes-Benz Infinite Spicy by the legendary nose Olivier Cresp. And so this one is very woody and very spicy. You're going to get, I just sprayed it on my arm earlier, you're going to get in this one something that is not too different from Spice Bomb, although they don't smell alike. I would say it's closer to Bulgari Man in Black, minus the boozy note. But this one's very similar to that one, minus the boozy note. But if you like woods and spices, it's an oriental fragrance. Not a whole lot of sweetness, but definitely a whole lot of spiciness with some pepper and things like that. Then this is one that you definitely want to check out. Infinite Spicy by Mercedes. All right, next up, we're going to go with one that's been kind of a hype beast, but for very good reason. There was a time you could get 100 ml of this for $40. Now it's gone up significantly, I think, or not even significantly, but it's more like probably $55 for 100 ml. But I'm talking about Azzaro Wanted by Night. One of the most interesting designer tobacco fragrance releases that I'm aware of. It is absolutely beautiful. You've got a sweet tobacco. It's kind of like a honeyed tobacco with cinnamon that kind of makes up the heart of this fragrance. You've got a little bit of a citrus and spice in the opening. This is a magical date night fragrance. It's one that I've just got I think 1.7 ounce bottle of here, so I have used it sparingly, but I would probably wear this one 3 times a week if I had a backup bottle. Wanted by Night, absolutely awesome, worth all the hype that it gets. The next one we're going to go with is one of the most popular releases from Mancera. So this is a niche fragrance, but it's still actually pretty reasonably priced. I'm talking about Oud Lemon Mint. And this one, even though it's got mint in the name, mint is not a dominant characteristic of this fragrance. There is a little bit of mintiness, but mostly you're going to get lemon and almond. Those are kind of the 2 notes that really stand out. And the oud in this fragrance is a very kind of mild oud. What it does is it takes a very sweet lemon almond note and it just kind of tones it down a little, brings it back to earth a little bit. This one comes across slightly powdery, and even though it is sweet, To me, this fragrance works great in warm weather. I don't know if I'd wear it at 100 degrees, but you know, up to 90 degrees, I have worn it and I love the way that it performs in the heat, but it also works well in the fall and winter. It's kind of an all year long fragrance. Awesome release by Mancera, Oud Lemon Mint. All right, next up, I'm going to go with one that is a classic at this point. It's inspired countless fragrances. It's one of the best-selling men's fragrances, I think, of all time, but definitely of the next 10 or 20, or the last 10 or 20 years. I'm talking about just the original PACO Rabanne 1 million. This is a fragrance that I have revisited a couple times, you know, since I got it. And so whenever I first smelled it, I just thought, man, this is an amazing fragrance. At that point, there wasn't a whole lot like 1 million whenever it came out. And so whenever I first got it, it was new and it was interesting and it was sweet and just an absolutely epic fragrance. But then I let it sit for a long time and I went back to it and I started to recognize some of the nuances of this fragrance. There is an exceptional freshness and cleanness in this fragrance that I didn't remember from back at the beginning. I just thought sweetness. It's got some cinnamon, it's got some vanilla, it's got some leather. So it's got some rich sweet notes, but it's also got a soapy cleanness that I think makes it very versatile. This is still an incredible fragrance, still a top-selling fragrance, although almost everyone has smelled it by now. PACO Rabanne 1 million, it's a killer. All right, this next one is a fairly new pickup for me. It's one that I smelled the original. It's a clone of a niche fragrance. I smelled it recently at a department store and thought, why have I never gotten a clone of this fragrance? I'm not going to buy the original, which is Amouage Reflection Man, but this is, by all of the accounts of those that I respect their opinion, this is the best clone of Amouage Reflection Man. I'm talking about Shiaka Black by Cadillage, I believe is how you say it, Shiaka Black. And what you're going to get in this one, you've got an orris root, which gives it kind of a slightly powdery, fresh iris kind of a vibe. But then you've got something that reminds you so much of Le Male, the original Le Male. There's not vanilla in this fragrance. There is a ylang-ylang note that adds some sweetness. I don't know how, out of the notes that exist in Reflection Man, it has such a similarity to Le Male, but it absolutely does. It reminds me a lot of that sort of, you know, lavender, vanilla, beautiful, fresh fragrance that Le Male is, sweet and fresh fragrance. This one is very similar, but it's also quite distinct, and I absolutely prefer this DNA to Le Male now. If you haven't smelled Reflection Man, check it out, or go ahead and pick up this clone. I think you can get it for around $30 at online discounters. All right, the next one we're going to go with, this is, I think, at this point, almost an iconic spring and summer fragrance. It is bright. It's citrus heavy. It's got some incredible florals. It's got a really unique freshness and a greenness as well. I'm talking about John VARVATOS Artisan Pure. And so if that sounds interesting, bright citruses, some florals that give it some lift, and then a little bit of a green note, this is a very refreshing, bright, happy fragrance. This is a fragrance that puts me in a good mood on a sunny day. This is one that I absolutely go back to over and over again. All right, the next one. This is another clone of a niche fragrance. This is a clone of Nishane Ani or Annie. I smelled this one and thought, I have got to get a hold of either the original or a clone, and it turned out LATAFFA has made a killer clone of Ani, I need to figure out how to say it. This is LATAFFA NASHEET. And what you're going to get with this one is a beautiful, sweet vanilla citrus in the opening. It almost smells like a lemon meringue pie, or to me, if you know what those little candies are, Smarties, it smells like the vanilla Smarties, a mix of citrus and vanilla. But then as it starts to dry down, this ginger and pepper spiciness comes out and mixed with that sweet vanilla, and it is absolutely mesmerizing. And this one, LATAFFA NASHEET, really surprised me because it develops exactly like the niche. Starts out that sort of citrus sweet vanilla and then morphs into spicy vanilla. I've been very impressed with it, although I will say the performance on this one is mysterious. I've had it last all through the night and be there in the morning, but other times I've worn it and 2 or 3 hours later I can't smell it anymore unless I put my nose right to my skin. I don't know what's going on with performance, but it smells absolutely amazing. I love it. All right, next up, this one is perfect for the heat. It's a great summer fragrance. It's a clone of Parfums de Marly Sedley. I'm talking about another one from LATAFFA. This is MAAHIR Legacy. And this thing is just a killer explosion of bright, juicy citrus. You know, almost like you just, took a big gulp of like very cold citrus water. But then as you get past the opening and start to get into the mid and the dry down, some warm spiciness and fresh spiciness starts to come out. There's some aromatics and some spice in the heart and the dry down that make this a very interesting fragrance. And it's also, again, very cool that this, $30 clone develops dramatically just like the Parfums de Marly $300 fragrance does. So highly recommended, MAAHIR Legacy by LATAFFA. All right, next up I'm going to go with one that the fragrance is not expensive at all, but I just have a little bottle, and so I've used it sparingly, but I love it so much that I would literally probably wear this about every night until I got sick of it because it is incredible. This is Salvatore Ferragamo UOMO Signature. And so this one is a gourmand fragrance that has some leather in it that will absolutely blow you away. It is similar to the original UOMO, but it's got a little bit of a coffee note and a little bit of a leatheriness. It actually reminds me of Armani Code, not Profumo, the other one that came out in the gold bottle. I have a 10 mil of it over there, but I'm blanking on it. It reminds me a lot of Absolute, Code Absolute, and even Fragrantica, like everyone says the same. But man, I love this fragrance. It is such an awesome cold weather fragrance, sweet and spicy with a little touch of leather. Absolutely a killer. All right, next up, speaking of leather fragrances, this is my favorite leather fragrance. It is absolutely amazing. You've got leather, you've got a dusty dark chocolate, you've got some cardamom and cinnamon and pepper, a real strong spiciness. I'm talking about PHILLIP PLEIN No Limits. This is an amazing fragrance. It's a PHILLIP PLEIN, which they are a high-end designer, but you can get 100 mil of this for around $50, $55, something like that. And if you like leather fragrances and spicy fragrances and gourmands, this blends all of that together in a way that is just absolutely breathtaking to me. First couple times I sprayed it, I didn't really like it because the leather was quite animalic. But as I wore it 2 or 3 more times, I fell in love with it, and now it's absolutely one of my favorites. The sweetness and spiciness balance out that slightly animalic leather beautifully. All right, the last one that I'm going to talk about. This is a cheapy gem that's gotten a lot of hype for very good reason. I'm talking about Halloween Man X. This has got whiskey, it's got leather, it's got a sweetness from, I believe it's tonka bean. It's got a little bit of spice. This is a coffee fragrance. Here's actually what it reminds me of. If you could take 1 million and add a coffee note and a little bit of a whiskey note, this is what you get. The freshness that is in the opening of 1 million is almost identical in this fragrance, and even the way that the sweetness and the leather in the dry down smells, it's very similar in this one to 1 million, but just add coffee and a little bit of booze, and to me that's what you get. And you can get this, I think, still for less than $40 for 100 mil. This is an absolutely unbelievable find. Every one of these are addictive fragrances that I go back to over and over again. What are some of your most addictive fragrances? Let me know in the comments. And please subscribe. I'll do my best to get some awesome videos out to you every 2 or 3 days. I'm Justin. This is Sillage Scents. I'll see you on the next one.